Good morning, students. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, students. Today we will start with 1.3, that is the call of soil. And students, I hope you all are filling the Google form for the attendance. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, students. Now, with regards to the call of the soil, this is written by Venkateshwaran or Venkat Iyer for short. Now, this person has, worked in the IT industry for around 15 to 17 years, right? And then finally, he decided to quit. Okay, the last company that he was working was IBM, that's International Business Machine, right? So he is actually a certified project management professional, and then he decided that he has to do something more than just being a professional. So he decided to switch to organic farming, right? You might have heard the word about organic farming. So in organic farming, what happens is the crops are grown without the use of any chemicals or pesticides for that matter, right? And obviously the harvest which we get, okay, is definitely good to consume, because in case if the fertilizers are used in excess or pesticides are sprayed on the crops, then there is a possibility, there is a threat of the people suffering from life threatening diseases like cancer and so on, right? So that's why more and more people are understanding the importance, the value of organic farming, and they are switching to it. And then the consumers are switching to the organic food products, right? So he has realized this long back, that is Venkat has realized this long back. And that's why he was very much sure that he could do he could definitely succeed, okay, in his aim that he can grow organic farming, that is without the use of any pesticides or fertilizers. Now, students, in this we have two parts, that is ascent of rice and then the first crop, right? So basically, here, this is description. This lesson is the description of how Venkat struggled a lot to get some traditional varieties, and then how it was difficult for him to convince other people that we can grow crops without the use of pesticides, right? So that's what we are going to study over here. And this is excerpt from Venkat Iyer's book called Moong over Microchips. So because he was working with microchips, because he was a software professional and he switched to growing rice and moong, that's why his book is called as Moong over Microchips. And this chapter talks about his settlement in Pate and his journey as a young farmer. So this is an assortment of series of events. So there are various events happening wherein the author discourages the use of pesticides and high inputs of chemical fertilizers and encourages organic farming. So this is a lesson for all of us to understand that we also need to give importance to agriculture rather than giving much importance to the other things that are happening around us, like taking efforts so that we ultimately end up with white collar jobs in the offices, right? So there are much things to do for us. So here we have in the first part, that is the first crop, you have characters like Venkat, who himself is the narrator and the author, and then he's the owner of the land. And then we have a broker, that is Moru Dada, who, with the help of whose he actually, comes to know what are the good varieties of which crop. So here, this lesson begins with a description of lush green field of Moong, right? Then the sky, which is bright orange. So Venkat is describing that, how he used to enjoy when he was young, okay? And then now he's again turning back to villages and then enjoying the natural feel, okay, that anyone experiences when you visit some natural surroundings like damp ground, okay, and if there is dew on the leaves, and then it's really wonderful sight to watch the rows of chiku trees. Then you also have dense foliage of moong. He's giving the description of the hibiscus flower. So he's describing basically nature in all aspects and saying that he used to enjoy when he was young, but then he became a software professional. He was living in a city and he was completely cut off from this natural surroundings, and now he's turning back. So he's describing his state of mind, that he was very happy, very excited, okay. And then apart from this, here, this lesson first of all tells us in the first part that he had to grow the moong, the green gram, right? So what he did is he took the help of this person, that is Moru Dada, who is a broker. He brought 10 kilograms of moong, right? And also Moru Dada gave him his tractor. That means he rented his tractor so that he can plow the land. And quickly the moong were planted. Okay. Then Moru Dada, because he was quite experienced, apart from being a broker, he himself was having good knowledge of the farming. So he suggested him, or rather, rather than suggesting we should use the word, he insisted him to use the pesticides. When Venkat, tried to convince him that no, we will be growing the crops without the use of the pesticides, Moru Dada had used this term harakiri. So harakiri is like, you're actually killing yourself by cutting open your stomach with a sword. That means if you're not using pesticides, that means you're killing your stomach. That means the crops would be eaten by the insects. That was Moru Dada's suggestion. And that's why he is using the word harakiri. So he was that much adamant about using the pesticides. And nowadays, farmers, can't even think of, growing the crops without the use of pesticides, because they have been used to, right? Earlier, like in ancient times, definitely the crops were grown without any use of pesticides or fertilizers. The crops were growing naturally. People were patient to wait for the crop to grow. But nowadays, people want fast results, so that's why even farmers have been forced to use the fertilizers, because fertilizers will enhance and accelerate the growth of the crop. So crops would grow faster because that's what the demand is in the market, right? So even farmers have been forced from many years to use fertilizers and pesticides, and that is why we can see the number of cases, that is the number of people suffering from diseases like cancer and other life-threatening diseases have increased, because these crops, okay, they definitely absorb these pesticides, okay, and to a certain extent, and definitely they are going to impact our lives in one way or the other. That's why the author, had insisted on all of us that we should switch to organic farming and organic food stuff. So here, once these seeds were planted, that is the 10 kilograms of moong was planted, and then he was waiting, for the crops to grow, and then when finally it grew, okay, he was quite excited. So now we'll just see few pictures related to this. So here he has given the description of lush green moong fields. And these are the lined up chiku trees. And these are the green pods, okay, which grow. Once the crops are grown, then the green pods also grow, small pods. That's what he has given the description about. And then the bloom. So various colored flowers. So he's just giving the reference to the various colored flowers. which normally grow along with the crops, right? So once the crop was grown, okay, he was definitely excited, and he was actually, more than excited. He was, thinking that it is actually a morale booster. Why it's a morale? And students, this pronunciation is not moral like we have moral stories. This is morale, and it means like how happy or confident you feel. So he was considering it to be a morale booster. Why? Because it definitely increased his confidence because everyone around him was asking to use pesticides. And now he had proved everyone that we could grow crops without the use of pesticides. So that comes to the end of the first part, and then we have the scent of rice. So after growing this moong, okay, he decided he should be growing the rice. Okay, however, it was quite late for him to grow the rice, and then he resorted to growing the GR four variety. This is GR variety. So now here, what is that special about GR4 variety? Because these seeds are quite strong, and at the same time they are pest resistant seeds. So if the seeds are pest resistant, there is no possibility that pest would come and infect the crops, right? So there would be definitely no question of using the pesticides. So he thought that we will be using this variety, and he was also recommended by the agricultural officers at one place called Kospat. Okay, so he decided that definitely he would be growing the variety of rice. Okay, and that will be traditional variety of rice. Okay, so which are like resistant to pests. So in this we have description of the various people that we will see. So here this there is a some explanation that before he started growing the traditional rice, he came to know that many of the farmers, in fact, not many, but most of the farmers, they don't use any of the traditional rice because it's a long duration crop. It takes a long time to harvest. So people have switched to using hybrid varieties of rice and which are short duration crops, right? And apart from these short duration crops, these crops require more water, more pesticides, and more fertilizers. So that's why people have, switched just for one reason, that it's short duration, it grows quickly, and they can supply to the market where there is a huge demand. So people have, stopped using the traditional varieties of rice. So this is all this part is about, like how he struggles and takes efforts to get this traditional varieties of rice. So first of all, now in 2005, what happens is he comes to know from a business person, that's a neighborhood, that he could get the traditional rice, or in Hindi it is called as the desi variety, right? So other farmers were also wondering why he is going for a desi variety when everyone is using the hybrids. Then there is another person, Babban, okay, and his father, they suggested him that the name of the traditional rice is kasbai. So this is what we will be studying all about, like kasbai. So first of all, now the author is describing about the kasbai rice, what kind of difference it is. Okay, it is having apart from the other rice. So first of all, it's a long grained rice and it is having a distinct aroma, like how basmati rice is having aroma, okay, or a fragrance, which comes uh, even if without cooking, okay, you can come to know there is basmati rice around you. But then the aroma of the kaspi rice is milder as compared to the basmati. And kasbai rice is long duration crop. Something more advantageous about Kaspai rice is it could stand in flash floods. Normally, other crops would be washed away if there are heavy floods, but then this is, even you can call it as a flood resistant variety, right? So this was the description what the author has given about the Kaspai rice. And then he came to know about the Kaspai rice, and then he started inquiring more about it. So there were people telling him a lot of stories of about the Kaspai rice. So he thought that maybe some government officer, okay, involved in the supply and supply of the seeds and supply of the other things, okay, may be aware. So he also took efforts to visit a agricultural officer. Now this agricultural officer was something quite different. First of all, he suggested the author that he has never heard of Kaspai rice. And on top of that, he's suggesting him that maybe the villagers are taking him for a ride. So this is an idiomatic phrase, students. You can just note down in the textbook. It is on page number 28, last line. So there are idiomatic phrases also, which are used and which have a different meaning. So to take someone for a ride means to cheat someone or to deceive someone. So this agricultural officer or the government agricultural officers, he told him that maybe the villagers are taking him for a ride. That means taking Venkat for a ride. So maybe he's being cheated by the villagers. Like there is no such rice called Kaspai rice which exists according to the agricultural officer. And then on top of that, he rattled off, like he spoke rapidly about the name of the latest hybrids. So maybe he was trying to suggest other varieties, and then he also said that maybe if you want you can take it for free. So he was not having any intention to cheat the author, but then he thought that why this author is only asking for Kaspai, which he's not aware of. So he also offered in some other varieties, some other hybrids of rice free of cost so that he could try. But then now Venkat was actually cursing himself that why did he actually visited this officer? So this visit was actually not very fruitful. Then finally there was other person in the picture, and that is Adivasi Mahamandal, okay, at the place called Kasa. So now here, this person is also related to the government. He buys rice from the Adivasi villagers on behalf of the government. So now Kaspai did not figure in their files, a good indication why people did not grow, because the market itself did not recognize, and that's why no one was growing this Kaspai rice. And then even if we grow that is this Venkat thought, even if I'm growing hardly, there will be people to buy it because people are not aware of this variety. However, this officer in charge, that is this Adivasi person, had more knowledge, okay, and he remembered Kaspai being sold to him a few years ago. Then, apart from that, he recommended him to visit some person called as Devu Handa. He was the old person and he was the ex sarpanch of the village. So this person, who was the ex sarpanch, okay, he was himself the owner of the acres of land, and he was having a very huge house and a large family. And then Devu Handa, when he was acquainted with the term called as Kasbai, he was not shocked. Okay, he was aware of this variety that is this Kasbai rice. So he also said, he also narrated the story like some years back that people were growing only Kaspai, and then whoever used to pass their village, that whoever used to cross their village, they were forced to stop, and they used to take this rice. Why? Because such was a strong aroma of the rice, and because everyone was using the same kind of rice, so everyone in their homes were cooking this variety only. So there was really strong aroma coming out, and those who were visitors or tourists just passing or crossing this village, they would stop and they would definitely take the plate of rice from them for eating. So that was a story told by the old person, that is Devu Handa. And then now he's saying that nowadays everyone is using hybrid varieties because they are short duration. So Venkat asked him that if you're aware about the advantages of the Kaspai rice, then why are you not using it? So he gave one reason that his field has no fences. It's not having any boundaries. So here he's saying that once the crop is harvested by the other farmers, because other farmers are using hybrid varieties or short duration crops, what would happen is they would leave their cattle, that is goats and cows, and then his field will be the only field left. So all the cattle will come and consume his crops, right? So that's why he is also not using Kaspai, even though he's aware about the advantages of Kaspai. And then he's also aware about the disadvantages of using the other hybrid varieties. So he's also saying that he doesn't even like the taste of the hybrid varieties of rice, because he feels that he has been used to eating only the Kaspai rice. But then from this we understand that we have to change with the circumstances. We cannot just simply stick to what we like, right? This is what we learn from here. And this was the explanation that he gave. So then he's just giving the explanation that these are very strong varieties. Okay, and then people don't understand, and then people are also, falling in line. Okay, falling in line is another idiomatic phrase, students. You can just take a note on page number 30. At the top, third line from the top, to fall in line means to conform with others. That means, whether you like it or not, okay, you have to, sometimes adjust yourself with the group. Okay. So though this person Devuhanda was aware about the disadvantages, okay, he was, remembering that there are many Adivasis, who are actually, still growing the caste pie. So there are, many villages, like we have reference to the places which are called Boripada or Asarwari village. Now both are actually, in simple language, you can call them village, but they are actually hamlet. Hamlet, anyone knows what's the meaning of Hamlet? Yes, anyone is aware what Hamlet is? Hamlet is a small village. So, like how normally the size of the village would be, okay, it's very smaller than the normal village. That's why it's a hamlet. So here Devuhanda gives him the reference of the Boripada hamlet, okay, where he can actually go, and then he also wishes them good luck, okay, with the name of the goddess, that you'll definitely find the seeds of this pipe, right? So then he starts his journey, okay, and then after taking lot of efforts, crossing through the thick vegetation, crossing numerous streams and ditches, and scrambling over rocks and gravel, finally he reaches the hamlet of Boripada. So just to get those traditional variety, he is taking lot of efforts. And when he reached this Boripada hamlet, there were, hardly two houses which were not in a very good condition. And then there was a next person, that is this old woman. Okay, she was a wrinkled old woman. So from her wrinkles, we could make out that she was quite old, maybe over 65 or 70 years of age. So then we have one person, that is Jeevan. Now, Jeevan was the assistant of Sarpanch, and he was also the interpreter, because he was interpreting whatever Venkat was saying to the Sarpanch. And since Venkat was also not aware about the local dialect, so he needed some assistance, and Jeevan was doing that job. And same thing he did when Venkat was interacting with this old woman regarding the Kaspai rice. So now here she was also quite taken aback, like she had never expected such a visitor who would ask her about the Kaspai rice. And she also explained her helplessness, that she doesn't have any weighing machine, because author asked for a 10 kg of rice. So that is rice seeds. But then she said that she doesn't have weighing scale, but then she said that she only sells in baskets. So she just gave the basket as per the requirement to Venkat, and then he handed over money to old man. So when she saw the money, she was quite happy, because it was like a, unexpected surprise for her, right? Otherwise, they had to wait for the crops to grow, and then they were feeding themselves, so they were not having any people from outside coming to buy their rice. So now she was quite happy. And then more than this old woman, it was Venkat who was more than excited, because after a lot of struggle, he was able to get this traditional variety, that is Kaspai rice. So people had never heard of such kind of varieties, but then because he was determined, okay, and then when he was coming back, he was wondering that still there are many people who are not even aware about some hybrids or fertilizers. They are growing rice, and they are feeding, and then living a very healthy life with free from diseases. So this lesson tells us that we need to understand the kind of lifestyle that we are living, a very fast paced life, wherein we don't even bother to find out what kind of food we are eating. So he needs to, he's just telling that we need to stop, we need to pause and think, and then, find out and take efforts that, at least we consume the right things. So nowadays, you might be aware that there were many people saying that the fruits which are which are sold in the market, okay, they are, painted with some wax so that it shines, right? So that, people could buy them looking at the color. So that's all, we need to be careful about. So this lesson is actually creating awareness, okay, amongst all of us, and just giving the lesson that we need to be cautious about what kind of food we are eating, and if possible, definitely switch to a better variety. Okay, students, so we are done with this, and it is expected that you go through the text and let me know if you have any queries. Yes, students, any queries that you have? Okay, and regarding the grammar part, students, last time we had started with the grammar section, right? Can anyone tell me where did I stop? Did I complete the phrases and clauses?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we have to complete that. So we had started with the types of clauses like noun clause, adjective clause, and adverb clause. And we have seen that adjective clause does the function like how adjective does, it describes. And then noun clause will be answering the question which begins with what. And then I had given the example of the adverb clause, and basically adverb means add verb, so additional information about the verbs, and same thing is done by the adverb clause. It gives additional information, and I have given the example like if it rains, the the crop would be bountiful, right? So basically, if it rains, the harvest will be bountiful. So this is like, giving condition. And I think we stopped till here. So we'll continue with the types of adverb clauses. So we have various types, like we have adverb clause of time, place, reason, condition, comparison, manner, contrast, and so on. So we'll just study all of them. So adverb clause of time, we managed to reach the assembly before the bell rang. So as I already mentioned, students, clauses or whatever clauses we are going to study, adjective, noun, or adverb, they will be subordinate clauses, right? So in this, we managed to reach the assembly is main clause. So now, students, identify the adverb clause of time in this. What is the adverb clause of time? Yes, adverb clause of time will be answering the question which begins with when. So when did you reach the assembly?
Before the bell rang.
So that's quite obvious. That's the adverb clause of time. Then adverb clause of place will be answering the question which begins with where. So example, the tired soldiers dumped their heavy bags wherever they found place. So just identify the adverb clause of place. Anyone?
Wherever.
It's not wherever. Wherever is one word. And when I talk about clause, you have to mark the entire group of words. So it is wherever they found place. Okay. Then adverb clause of reason will be answering the question which begins with why. So example, she refused the money because she saw it as an attempt to bribe her. Anyone? What's the adverb clause of reason?
Because she saw it as an attempt to bribe her.
Perfect. So it starts from because till the end of the sentence, and she refused the money is the main clause. Then going forward to the next type, so you have adverb clause of manner. It answers the question how, like how things are taking place. So he spoke as if he had been giving speeches all his life. What's the adverb clause of manner?
Had
It
been
is
how he had been giving speeches all his life.
okay. Adverb clause of manner will be indicated by words like as, like, right? So it begins from as if. So how he spoke, the answer is as if he had been giving speeches all his life. So the part of the sentence which begins from as till the end is the example of adverb clause of manner. You simply have to ask yourself a question which begins with how. So how he spoke, the answer is as if. Next, as if in the sense complete till the end. Next, adverb clause of comparison. So when you're basically comparing something, then you use these words like then, than. So in this sentence, she is much older than she claims to be. First of all, tell me which two things are compared here. Before you tell me the clause, what are the two things compared here?
Her real age and the one she told about.
Correct. Okay. First of all, the actual, age of the lady, and then what she's claiming, right? Two things are compared here. So, students, identify the main clause. Is anyone? I mean, I could hear the voices which are quite similar, I suppose.
She's
Aditya,
much older.
yeah. What about other students? No one else is responding. Okay, so here she is much older is the main clause. And then when it comes to comparison, it begins from then she claims to be is the adverb clause of comparison. Then you have adverb clause of result. Now, result and reason, okay, or purpose, they are almost the same, except for the fact that in reason we may use because, and here we have used so that. So the statement would be same, that is adverb clause of result will answer the question which begins with why. So the child kept on howling so that her parents had to be called. So can anyone frame the question here? What's the question? The question should begin with why. So can anyone try?
Why why did the child kept on howling?
Correct. So you have to just use this grammatically correct. So why did the child keep on howling, right? And the answer is so that her parents had to be called. So this part, so that her parents had to be called, is adverb clause of result. Then we have adverb clause of contrast. Anyone, what's the meaning of contrast? You all wear contrast combination of clothes, right? So what is contrast?
Different.
Yeah, different or rather opposite, right? So example here is, although he is rich, he does not spend much. So we are talking about someone possessing wealth, and obviously when you have something in excess, you tend to spend. But here there is an opposition, that this person is having wealth or money, but he is not spending much, right? So this is in contrast, and that's why we indicated with the help of adverb clause of contrast. So students, anyone can identify the main clause here?
He does not spend much.
Perfect. So why this example is given, that you should not be carried away that always main clause comes in the beginning. You can have main clause towards the end of the sentence or even in the middle of the sentence. So he does not spend much main clause. And then obviously, although he is rich is an example of subordinate clause, that is adverb clause of contrast. So we have indicated contrast with the help of although, right? Can anyone just tell me which are the other words which indicate contrast rather than, I mean, other than this although?
Though, even though.
Okay, something more? Good, though, even though is correct. And there are still more which we commonly use. Contrast, opposition. I just now, used it while explaining this sentence. But, what is the function of but? He studied well, but he failed. So it is indicating contrast, right? And apart from but, though, even though, although, can you tell me one more word which we use? Have you heard of in spite of or despite? These are all the words which indicate contrast. So we'll just study their, functions later on. So adverb clause of condition. So condition usually is indicated by the word if. So if you help me, I will help you. Kind of that. Can you suggest some other words which indicate condition apart from the word if? Provided that, unless, right? Unless you help me, okay, I won't help you, something of that sort, or until. So condition will be here example of the
Unless
main clause. Yes, yes, students. Example of main clause. In this sentence, what's the main clause?
Everyone will trust you.
Perfect. And the other part which begins with the word if. So if you speak the truth is the adverb clause of condition. So why we are studying all these clauses? Because they are the base for the sentences that we are going to study, that is simple, compound, and complex. Because the definition of these simple, compound, and complex sentences has the description of the words like clauses. So before we actually start with the sentences, I'll quickly take the attendance, and I hope everyone has filled that Google form for the attendance. And are you all filling the attendance form for the lecture?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And because now the time is up, whatever I continue with the explanation, that should be enough, and then there is no need for you to reconnect. Okay. So we hardly have a minute, and let's see how much we can complete. So we have three types of sentences: simple, compound, and complex. Okay, simple sentences are those, okay, which have only one independent clause. Compound sentences have two or more than two independent clauses. Then we have complex sentences which have one independent clause and one dependent clause. So simple sentences, we'll just see the examples like the sculpture looked at the statue. This is one simple sentence, okay? There are no two clauses, so it is simple. And then compound sentences, as I said, that you have two or more independent clauses. The soldiers surveyed the entire area and divided themselves in small groups. So you have one independent clause, soldiers surveyed the entire area. Second independent clause, they divided themselves in small groups, and both are joined by and. So students, what is this and? Anyone knows in grammatical sense what's this and?